Okay, so we're starting. This is going to be a first attempt at basically looking at painting and over-the-shoulder point of view. Been doing painting for a few years now, certainly not a professional. I just enjoy doing it. So today we are doing a mini nuke for a coworker of mine. Basically, we built one of these for our boss in the office, and this was a test one, ended up a little on the small side, and his son really liked it, so we wanted to come back and knock out this test one. This one has some imperfections in it, like damage to the outside filament. This lid was supposed to be a screw-on, but the inside screw threads were a bit damaged, and I ended up just basically gluing it all on. The whole thing is assembled, so the tail kit is on, and the base coat is already done with a Panzer Aces 048 splinter strips color. And so with the base coat on, what I'm going to do now is basically be shading today with Citadel's Agrax Earthshade. I personally like brown shades over green as opposed to doing black shades over green, and it's going to allow us to really brighten up some of these ridges and around the screw holes. I want to do some work around the corners of these divots as well as down into the tail fin assembly. And once that's done, we're going to begin base coating the yellow and red stripes, which are on the nose cone assembly here. And then after that, we've got some small screws that we'll be putting in around the corners and the edges here. And what I want to do is some highlighting. I actually want to highlight a lot of this damage here as well as this seam. Had the opportunity to basically fill it and sand it down with PVA, and opted to not in favor of actually going through and doing some metallic damage highlighting. And I think it'll be a lot more fun to really bring out the damage done from the printing, and it'll just be a lot easier than trying to repair all these holes, and it'll give it a significantly better depth of character for a piece like this. So what I'd like to do now is start by trying to do 2 to 3 minutes of real-time shading around the corners and everything else, and then go to a time lapse after that. So that's going to be the plan for this guy, and we're going to get started. So just so you know, this is the brush setup assembly. If you've ever joined or heard of the Nuln Oil Club, it's where you take a bottle of black ink, which is Citadel Shade Nuln Oil, and then you proceed to dump it on yourself and your desk and all of your favorite belongings, and probably everything that you're painting at that time. So in order to avoid that, or actually soon after becoming a member of the Nuln Oil Club, I decided to set up this current setup here, which is 1 1/4 inch holes in a block of wood. Already not happy. So we're going to go with my number 0 instead of my number 1 here. So I'm taking everything and I'm going to be shading in the lower edge, which is underneath this ridge, highlighting a perceived downwards light. Of course, there will be a downwards light in most viewing instances, unless it's hung from a wire or something like that, but because this is going to be a gift for his son, my guess is that it'll be sitting on a dresser or an end table or something, and will be sitting upright. So now we've come full circle. I'm going to continue one more lap. Which probably isn't necessary, because I'm actually really happy with that highlight, or rather that shadow right there. So now we start on the next one down. So while we're doing this, a quick about the Nuke. I found this model online. My coworker, who was the one that 3D printed this, usually does the 3D printed for our office for going away gifts and stuff of the sort. And this was the first of something, call it a collaboration if you want, that we have done within the office. So we have one guy, name is Alan, who does a lot of like soldering and electrical. Hubi, who this is for, does our 3D printing, and then I've been doing painting on the side for a few years, and this is the beginning of what could be some collaborative work in the future. I'm actually really happy with how this is going. So we will probably not end up switching this to time-lapse. I'll just continue like this, and it'll be a bit of a longer video. But I think it would be more fun to leave it as a full paint than a time-lapse. Okay, so I got all those done. I want to do a little bit more here. Across that bottom edge there. Okay, so happy with those outlines there. All the way around. Okay. Now I'm going to be taking some more of this and transferring it to the palette, because we're about to go through a pretty significant quantity of this. I'm going to be watering it down with one drop of Citadel's Lamian Medium, which is just clear paint medium. A lot of paint mediums end up coming in a kind of white pigment, like this Vallejo's thinner medium. And so I have them both on hand, and basically allows me to pick and choose what I want. So this will, one, dilute the color without diluting the medium. Diluting with water when you're dealing with stuff like this, especially if you want to do large quantities of dilutions, will end up giving you water rings, and that's not something that you want to do when you're covering large distances like this. So while it may be cheaper to just say, I'll use water, and you're definitely right, I don't like the water rings that are associated with that. So that goes around there. So now we're going to go. So this is where the video will probably get less and less interesting as I go through and shade a whole bunch of areas that will probably never end up getting seen. But these are the details that I personally enjoy. It makes the mini stuff, like if your character is holding a book, doing gold edging on the pages of the book, or writing on the text of the book, stuff like that. It's just stuff that I personally enjoy focusing on. That I believe brings out a lot of the interesting parts of the mini. note. Gonna need just a drop more of Agrax Earthshade. Highlight some areas like that right there. So with that, I think the tail kit might be done. I want to kind of go through the edges of all those fins there as well. I'll probably come through here, do some low lighting in corners like this. Not what I intended right there. Do some low light there, low light there. Probably come all the way across the bottom. So my only concern, I don't want to go crazy with this, is because if you look, and it's probably pretty easy to see, there's still the ridges from the 3D printing are all on here. And I didn't go through and sand them. It creates problems when you're trying to clean up little sprue marks like that or mold lines. Because if I do too much sanding, what it'll do is basically create this flat spot here. So unless my options are to go through and sand the whole thing or highlight things like that. So this is a crease that we're going to do a little bit of battle damage on later on. Right now I am going to low light it to highlight that it exists. This was one of those Bob Ross moments where you just kind of say there are no, what is it? No errors, only happy little accidents. And then we'll do something like this. I want to do the top edge here. So remember, light is going to be coming down this direction on our piece. So I want to be low lighting the top edge like that. And then I'm going to highlight the bottom edge, probably in a metallic. Do a little bit more there. So for the purposes of the fact that this is a video targeted not to miniature painters, what we're using here is what's known as a wash or a shade over here on the right. And a wash or a shade is a much thinner paint ratio. I guess the best analogy is an ink, which some companies do make inks which basically do the same thing. And inks will go through and flow into recesses like these rings here and these ridges, and basically flow into those and create a perceived shadow. So that'll be part one. And then in part two, we're going to begin the base coating of building up the striping around here and around the edges. And, oh, don't forget, close your pots. That's how you join the Known Oil Club, folks. But with that, part two will be the striping, and then we'll probably do a part three, which is going to be the weathering. Perfect.